I was a little apprehensive going into this only because Netflix of late hasn't had a great track record with rom-coms, but Nobody Wants This is an absolute delight. Basically, it's what happens if Seth Cohen from The OC and Veronica Mars from Veronica Mars grew up and got together. I will start by saying this: it is incredibly well written. And I think I want to make that point because in a lot of these shows, the way people talk doesn't actually reflect reality, but ends up reflecting some quirky, witty banter that the writers want to put forward. And while these characters are quirky and witty, the relationships between them, between the sisters, between Seth Cohen and Veronica Mars, all of that feels very true to life. And it feels like how actual people talk, as opposed to them trying to capture a feeling, a mood, or a trend. And I really appreciated that. There was this one moment between the two sisters when Morgan is talking to Joanne. Joanne is Kristen Bell, and Morgan says to Joanne, "Oh, she's more perfect than you even think she is. She has no pores on her face." And I'm watching this with my wife, and my wife looks at me and goes, "If someone told me that about your ex, I would be really freaked out. That would really get to me." And I'm like, yeah, I know, right?
I will say, when that line was said, first thought that crossed my mind was, I have no idea what any of that means. To be fair, I'm a guy that washes my face with my body soap, so
Hey, it does the job. It's soap, right?
Yeah, it's soap.
You can use it for your hair, your face, your body,
Why not?
whatever.
Yeah.
It's the same stuff. It's a marketing scam, Bahir.
Get her done.
Exactly. It's a marketing scam so that you spend more money buying products with the same shit inside. Man, we need to start another podcast about that.
While we're on this podcast, I agree with you. I came into this with some apprehension. I found myself a little whingy after the first episode. There's a thing that this show does throughout the entire series where they will intersperse scenes with vignettes of Los Angeles, and I thought that was too much because they did it a lot. But I feel like they toned it down in subsequent episodes. Episode 1 had it a lot, and I'm like, this feels a little like a real hard sell for Los Angeles. I warmed up to it quite easily towards episode 2, episode 3, episode 4, and I found myself really interested and really sold on these characters and the relationships that they had.
Also, it's been a long time since I've seen a 10-episode Netflix series that moves, that is pacey, that isn't just filler. All of these episodes felt different, interesting, and necessary. It felt necessary in telling the story, and by the end of it, I didn't feel like there were bits where I was bored or felt cheated by. There are so many shows in which I'm watching it and I feel like they're doing stuff to set something up.
In the next episode.
Correct.
Yes.
And in this one, it was all in service of these characters and the journey that both Noah and Joanne are taking in this forbidden love, right? Between a Jew and a Gentile.
The big thing was that at the end of the 10 episodes, I was annoyed, but only because I wanted more. There was a strange thing where, because I was binging it and I was watching episode after episode, I wasn't keeping count as to how many episodes I had seen. And when the show ends and there was no more 3 seconds to the next episode, I was like, oh, wait, is that how they're going to end it? But not in a bad way, right? Not in a shortchange sort of way.
No, because even if there isn't a season 2, I felt this ending was perfect.
I mean, I don't know about perfect, but I would have liked another episode.
Really? I thought it was perfect. Like for me,
Right.
This is great in the sense that it leaves it on a nice note.
Yep.
It leaves you wanting more, but it doesn't leave you feeling shortchanged. And I think that's
right.
the most important thing. Actually, we haven't told people what it's about. If you don't know, Nobody Wants This stars Adam Brody as Noah and Kristen Bell as Joanne. She's a Gentile, he's a Jew, she's a Shiksa. They fall in love. It is forbidden because he's a rabbi as well, and a rabbi dating a Shiksa. Oh no, that's a big no-no. And so hijinks ensue as they try to pursue this relationship. The series is based on the real-life story of the Foster sisters. The Foster sisters have a podcast too here. Kristen Bell and her sister also have a podcast. The Foster sisters are the daughters of David Foster. So Erin Foster also married a Jew, also converted to Judaism, and this series is kind of loosely based on her real life experiences. Now, the one element of Nobody Wants This that I didn't like, and it's a small nitpick, they kept trying to tell the story about how Spotify wanted to invest in their podcast and blow up their podcast, and so they can become podcast moguls. But that story actually goes absolutely nowhere. Like most of the series, there are bits that get resolved and get spoken about. But the podcast story just feels like it's hanging.
To be fair, that is exactly what Spotify has done to a lot of podcasters.
I guess. I
You know,
guess.
just do all these meetings and send all these emails about, oh, we're gonna be putting a lot of more attention into podcasts, and then realize that they're only talking about Joe Rogan and the Hawk Tuagle.
That part of the story felt unfinished. Everything else kind of fit, kind of had a suitable resolution. It kind of left me feeling satisfied.
Yep.
But the main reason why this works is because of Adam Brody and Kristen Bell.
Yeah.
Like, they are so fucking charming. Their chemistry is insane. It is off the charts. And it's the same charm that we saw in The OC, in Veronica Mars, in The Good Place. There's a reason we liked these people on TV and we liked watching them over and over again.
I mean, my only comment against that would be that I think I'd have loved to have seen a different Kristen Bell, not the first season Good Place Kristen Bell, right? The slightly potty mouth, the slightly less polished, refined Kristen Bell, which is great. Like, I love that character, but I think having come off of The Good Place, where she did that very well and showed a lot of range throughout the show because the show itself took her character to places, I feel like I would have liked a different Kristen Bell in this one.
In this case, though, I feel like it's being based off Erin Foster.
Maybe, I guess.
And I think that was necessary to kind of play off the straight Adam Brody. In this case, Adam Brody is sexy and witty and cool and all of that stuff, but he's still a rabbi. So he's a lot straighter and more serious than your average rom-com lead. And I think that dynamic worked really, really well. Also, fucking Adam Brody is doing more PR for Judaism and Jews in this movie, given the whole Gaza-Israel situation, than anyone else on the planet. I feel like Netanyahu needs to roll out some sexy rabbis.
Aside from the fact that Adam Brody's character is a Jewish rabbi, this isn't a Jewish PR play.
No.
Okay? Just putting it out there so nobody starts talking shit about Israelis trying to make people love the Jews and make this TV show all great and stuff.
But here's the thing about this show, right? You could replace Adam Brody's Jewness with a Muslim, with a Hindu, with a Catholic, with a Chinese person, with an Indian person, with a Pakistani person, and you have that same dynamic. I mean, this is a series, the concept of which we've seen many times before. It's Mississippi Masala. It's all of these shows that feature interracial couples with the same family dynamics when one side is particularly conservative. What makes this one interesting or this one different is because of these two actors, the chemistry, the banter.
Yeah.
Because we saw the same thing play out in that Eddie Murphy movie.
God.
And that was also on Netflix and just dull as shit. Like, not funny at all. And I think Nobody Wants This strikes a perfect balance between funny and poignant and emotional and sexy and cool. Like, all of it is there. And it feels like a very old-fashioned rom-com, which I truly appreciate.
It's a rom-com for TV that isn't finding the rom-com tag a weight on its shoulders, right? I'm glad for a show like Abishola and what? Abishola and Bob, I think. Bob and Abishola, I think.
Bob. Yeah. Bob Hart's Abishola.
Like, decent title, but it was a really lame 1990s cop-out of a sitcom. Whereas here, not only is it a good sitcom, it's a good rom-com, which is just two genres you don't see off very often anymore. And I think the fact that it's coming from Netflix is all the more surprising. Everything you just said about this show really, really works for me. And again, I was sitting there thinking to myself that this concept, not even a concept really, but this idea could work if it was a Muslim. I kept asking myself, like, could something like this happen in Malaysia? Could you do a sitcom like this, minus the sex and romance, where one is a Muslim and the other isn't? I was like, yeah, you could.
You could, because the whole conversion thing is a huge, important factor in that. And I think that makes for a very interesting conflict and funny stories.
Sure, but like for me, what it is that the concept still stands, right? It's not locked into the fact that it's in Los Angeles. It's not locked into the fact that it's an American couple. The comedy and the setup works regardless of where you are. And I think that's what makes this really good. The other thing as well is, with that kind of setup that Nobody Wants This has, there's always that episode 7, episode 8 slump when she decides to walk away from him or he's having second. Whereas here, they did it a couple times throughout the show, but it never loses the point that it's a sitcom and a rom-com.
But also it never drags out.
It never drags out.
Because they behave like grown-ups and adults and talk about it almost immediately.
Yes.
There's just enough of it to stretch out and give you some drama in the episode. But then they talk about it like grown-ups.
There's a bit in episode 2, I want to say, when they go on their first date. They part, he gets a phone call, he rushes to the hospital, and Kristen Bell's character is texting him and saying how lovely a time she had, and he doesn't reply. And she spirals, right? Like, this is the quintessential rom-com in 2024 where she spirals, her sister is of no help, the sister is enabling Joanne, and at the end of the episode, Adam Brody just shows up at her house. Oh yeah, sorry about that. My phone wasn't with me. And it's just like, oh, okay, yeah, that's cool. There's no long drawn out thing of like, oh, has he gone back to his ex? Is he just pulling me along? There's none of that. They just act like adults and move the fuck on.
I love it.
Love it.
I mean, that's what you call really tight, efficient writing.
Yeah.
And it's something that needs to be applied to a lot more Netflix shows. 100%.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to tell you this because I think it's already become a cult hit over the weekend. But Nobody Wants This is a great watch. It is a fun 10 episodes. It is the old-fashioned rom-com you've been waiting for a very long time. Check it out. Let us know what you think once you have. You know how to reach out. Goggler MY, all of our social media feeds. You can also email us on podcast@goggler.my or send us a WhatsApp on the Goggler hotline, 012-524-5208. Thank you so much for listening. This is the Goggler Podcast.